They were never supposed to be taken seriously. Phone shoes with holes in them. You won't believe this. They started as a joke between friends on a boat trip. No one saw it coming, but that joke would flip the footwear industry upside down. Most people think success comes from perfect ideas, sleek designs, and flawless execution. The truth revealed here is, sometimes the ugliest idea in the room is the one that changes everything. It almost didn't work. In fact, experts said it wouldn't, and yet, those same experts now were the proof on their own feet. What really happened is a story of risk, reinvention, and the secret behind turning mockery into millions. And if you think this is just about shoes, think again. Because the hidden lesson here could be the spark that transforms your wildest idea into your biggest win. To Pico 1, unlikely origins. Picture this. 3 friends on a sun-soaked boating trip in the Caribbean, waves glistening under a cloudless sky, when they stumble upon something no one saw coming. A strange-looking phone clog made from a material called Crocs. It wasn't sleek, it wasn't elegant, and you won't believe this, it wasn't even meant to be fashionable. But Scott Siemens, Lyndon Hansen, and George Bodeker Jr. saw something in it. Something the rest of the world didn't. That's the thing about opportunity, it rarely knocks politely. Sometimes it just floats in front of you, like a bizarre piece of foam on a boat deck. They learned that this odd material, Crocs, was waterproof, lightweight, and shockingly comfortable. The kind of comfort that could make someone forget they were wearing shoes. And here's the hidden lesson. Innovation doesn't always start in a lab. Sometimes it's born out of pure accident. What really happened next was bold. The trio didn't just admire the shoes, they bought the US distribution rights. Most people would have laughed it off. They didn't. They were already imagining something bigger. Even if the rest of the world thought it almost didn't work, their first big test came in 2002 at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. This was the perfect crowd: sailors, fishermen, and anyone who valued function over fashion. They launched the beach model, simple and unapologetic. And here's the shocking story, it sold out instantly. Imagine setting up a small booth, unsure if people will even stop by, and then walking away with every single pair gone. That moment wasn't just a sales success, it was proof they were onto something. And it changed everything for their vision. But think about it, most startups in that moment would have stopped to analyze the market for months. Not them, they went straight from boat show success to dreaming about nationwide reach. That's what no one tells you about entrepreneurship. Speed can be your biggest weapon. They didn't have millions in funding. They had belief, hustle, and a product that people didn't know they needed until they slipped it on. And that combination, it's rarer than you think. Still, the irony was hard to ignore. These shoes didn't fit any definition of beauty. They weren't chasing runway trends, they were chasing practicality. And yet, deep down, they sensed that if they could just get them on people's feet, the product would speak for itself. It could have ended here, right after the boat show, just another novelty item that fades, but the truth revealed itself. In the smiles of customers walking away in their new clogs, they didn't care about looks. They cared about comfort, and here's where the story starts to build momentum. The trio knew they had a name to figure out, a brand to create, and a world to convince. But they also knew something else. They were about to step into an arena where ugly could be turned into iconic. That's the secret behind it all, finding a way to make people feel something, even about a pair of phone shoes. And as they moved from that boat show into the next phase of their journey, they were about to discover just how far and how fast this strange little clog could travel. To Pico 2, early branding and scale up after the boat showed triumph. They faced a question every entrepreneur eventually asks: how do we turn this spark into a roaring fire? The first move was the name. They chose Crocs, short, sharp, and inspired by the crocodile, a creature that thrives on both land and water. You won't believe this, but that name alone began to plant a seed in people's minds. These shoes weren't just for one place or one activity. They could go anywhere, and when a brand name instantly paints a picture, you've already won half the battle. The branding wasn't fancy. There were no glossy lifestyle ads or celebrity endorsements yet. It was raw and practical, selling to people who valued comfort, durability, and versatility over style points. But here's the truth revealed: when you nail your product market fit, the brand almost builds itself. Word spread fast. Crocs weren't just in boating circles anymore. Hikers, gardeners, nurses, anyone on their feet for hours started paying attention. Then came the scale up, and this changed everything. They weren't content being a small novelty product, they aimed for millions. Factories were opened around the world, and in a brilliant move, they bought the company that manufactured Croslite. That's what no one tells you: owning your supply chain can make or break you. By vertically integrating, they ensured control over quality, production speed, and pricing, which meant they could outpace copycats before they even appeared. But aggressive growth is a double-edged sword. They were everywhere: trade shows, retail chains, online, and yet there was a risk. Grow too fast and you can burn out your audience. Still, they kept pushing. If you've ever wondered how a small product suddenly becomes a household name, it's this combination: speed, visibility, and the ability to meet demand instantly. And Crocs mastered that like a seasoned heavyweight. By the mid-2000s, millions of pairs had been sold. Schools, hospitals, and even restaurants began adopting them as part of their everyday gear. That's the hidden lesson: if you can make a product so functional that it becomes essential in certain jobs or lifestyles, you've built a fortress around your brand. It almost didn't work. They could have been dismissed as boat shoes forever, but by diversifying their customer base early, they locked in long-term survival. And yet, despite the impressive numbers, a question lingered in the background: could something so visually polarizing ever become truly mainstream? The founders were about to test a daring idea, embracing the very thing most brands would hide from. And in doing so, they'd spark one of the most controversial and talked about marketing strategies in footwear history. To Pico 3, ugly can be beautiful marketing. Most companies would have done everything to hide the fact that their product was ugly. Not Crocs. You won't believe this. They leaned into it. They made the chunky, hole-filled look part of the identity. Instead of apologizing for it, they told the world, yes, we know they look different. And that's why they work. That bold move created a magnetic pull. Love it or hate it, you couldn't ignore it. And in marketing, being unforgettable beats being pretty every single time. This strategy tapped into something bigger: a cultural shift. People were tired of the same polished, picture-perfect products. Crocs became the rebel in the shoe aisle, the one breaking all the rules. The truth revealed here? Sometimes your biggest weakness is actually your greatest strength, if you have the courage to own it. And when your product sparks conversations, positive or negative, you've already won. Free advertising. Their campaigns started to embrace this divisive nature. Ads didn't shy away from showing the quirky design, they doubled down on it. It was almost a dare: we know you think they're ugly, try them on anyway. And when people did, they were shocked by the comfort. That's the hidden lesson. In sales, sometimes you need to create a contrast so strong, the reality feels like a revelation. Crocs quickly became the conversation shoes. Fashion bloggers mocked them, celebrities wore them ironically, and yet sales kept climbing. Why? Because what really happened was a grassroots movement. People who valued comfort started defending them online, turning into unpaid brand ambassadors. It almost didn't work. This kind of marketing can backfire, but Crocs hit the perfect balance between self-awareness and pride. And here's the wild part: embracing the ugly label actually made them cool in some circles. Think about it: when a brand has the confidence to laugh at itself, it becomes relatable. That relatability is marketing gold. Just look at how brands like Dollar Shave Club or Oatly built cult followings by owning their quirks. Crocs was doing the same thing, but with shoes that looked like, well, garden clogs from another planet. But Crocs wasn't stopping at a clever ad strategy. They were about to take personalization to a whole new level. letting customers literally make the shoes their own, and that move wouldn't just add revenue. It would forge emotional connections that no pretty shoe could ever replicate. To Pico for personalization and gibbets. Just when the world thought they had Crocs figured out, the brand pulled a move no one saw coming: personalization. Enter gibbets, small, colorful charms that snapped right into the ventilation holes. At first glance, they looked like a playful gimmick. But you won't believe this, they became a cultural phenomenon. Suddenly, Crocs weren't just shoes, they were a canvas. A blank stage where people could display their personalities, interests, and even their humor. This wasn't just fun, it was strategic genius. The truth revealed here is that personalization creates ownership. When someone decorates a pair of Crocs with gibbets, they're no longer the Crocs, they're my Crocs. That emotional connection can turn a casual beer into a lifelong fan. Think about it, people will switch brands for a better product, but they'll fight to keep something they've made their own. The revenue impact was immediate. Gibbets became a fresh income stream with profit margins that could make any CFO smile. But more importantly, it fueled the kind of repeat purchases most shoe brands dream about. You didn't need a new pair of Crocs to change your style. You just bought new charms. It almost didn't work, though. Had gibbets been cheap or low quality, the whole idea might have felt like a novelty destined to fade. What really happened was even bigger. Kids became obsessed, teens turned them into fashion statements, and adults found ways to make them work for everything from holidays to work themes. Nurses had medical-themed gibbets, gardeners had flower charms, and travelers collected them like souvenirs. The hidden lesson? When your product can adapt to the user's identity, it can slip into any lifestyle seamlessly. And here's the kicker. Crocs didn't even invent gibbets. They bought the small company that did after realizing how perfectly the idea fit their brand. That's what no one tells you. Sometimes innovation isn't about creating something new, but about recognizing a perfect match and bringing it into your world. It's the same principle behind Apple buying Beats or Facebook acquiring Instagram. But even with personalization driving loyalty, the brand was about to face its biggest test yet. A storm was coming, one that would shake not just Crocs, but the entire retail world. And for a moment, it would look like those quirky phone clogs might not survive at all. To Pico 5, crisis and restructuring beat 2008, Crocs had ridden a wave of explosive growth, millions sold, factories buzzing, brand awareness at an all-time high. But you won't believe this, that same momentum nearly destroyed them. The global financial crisis hit like a sledgehammer. Consumer spending collapsed, and Crocs, with their sprawling product lines and bloated inventory, were caught completely off guard. It wasn't just bad, it was a free fall. Stores that once couldn't keep Crocs in stock were now overflowing with unsold clogs. The truth revealed itself in boardrooms. Overextension had made them fragile. What no one tells you is that rapid growth can hide deep cracks in a business model, cracks that only show when the tide goes out. Crocs had dozens of styles, colors, and experiments on shelves. But most of them weren't selling. The cuts were brutal, hundreds of layoffs, factory closures. A painful retreat from markets they'd entered too quickly. It almost didn't work. Even loyal fans began to wonder if the company would make it. This wasn't just a dip in sales, it was a full-blown identity crisis. What exactly was Crocs? A lifestyle brand, a fad, or just another early 2000s novelty destined to fade into remember those nostalgia bins? Then came a lifeline. Private equity giant Blackstone invested in Crocs, injecting not just capital, but urgency. They brought in Andrew Rees, a new CEO with a very different mindset. His first move: cut the noise. Focus on the hero product, the original clog, and ruthlessly eliminate the underperformers. It was a gamble. Could his single, polarizing shoe carry an entire company? Slowly, the strategy started to work. By tightening the product line, they simplified operations, reduced costs, and made inventory manageable again. The hidden lesson here: in business, Sometimes survival depends on subtraction, not addition. And the same applies to life. When everything feels overwhelming, cutting back to the essentials can be the only way forward. But Crocs couldn't just play defense forever. They needed a spark, something that would make the world fall in love with them again, or at least talk about them non-stop. And soon, an idea would emerge that blended high fashion, irony, and internet culture in a way no one saw coming. To Pico. 6. Comeback through strategic collabs. Crocs had stripped back to their core, but that alone wouldn't make them relevant again. Then came a move no one saw coming. Stepping into the world of high fashion, the first big shock, a collaboration with Balenciaga. You won't believe this, but they took Crocs, added a towering platform sole, and sent them down Paris Fashion Week runways. Critics called it absurd, but it sold out instantly. Suddenly, Crocs weren't just practical, they were provocative. This was the truth revealed. Sometimes, you can reframe your image not by hiding your quirks, but by amplifying them in unexpected places. By partnering with brands like Balenciaga, Christopher Kane, and Post Malone, Crocs tapped into a cultural sweet spot. Irony meets exclusivity. They became the shoe you wore when you wanted to make a statement, whether that statement was "I'm in on the joke" or "I'm rewriting the rules." Social media poured gasoline on the fire. TikTok challenges, Instagram memes, and YouTube reviews turned Crocs into a pop culture talking point. Gen Z, in particular, embraced them, not despite their oddness, but because of it. That's the hidden lesson. In an age of algorithms, being memorable matters more than being universally liked. Each collab was a strategic masterstroke. Limited runs created scarcity. Celebrity cosigns added credibility, and fashion insiders, who once dismissed Crocs, now called them camp, avant-garde, and unexpectedly iconic. It almost didn't work. The line between genius and gimmick is razor thin, but Crocs balanced it perfectly. The financial results were undeniable. Sales surged, stock prices climbed, and suddenly the brand had cultural cachet in both suburban malls and elite fashion circles. Few companies pull off that kind of double life. What no one tells you is that brand resurrection often requires a risk so bold, it makes your own team nervous. And Crocs took that leap without hesitation. With their reputation reborn, Crocs turned to an even bigger play, expanding their portfolio beyond the iconic clog. And their next acquisition wouldn't just broaden their reach, it would set them up to dominate entirely new corners of the footwear market. To Pico 7, portfolio expansion. Hey Dude acquisition. By 2021, Crocs wasn't just back, they were thriving. But here's the thing, even a revived brand knows it can't depend on one hero product forever. You won't believe this, but their next move was the largest acquisition in the company's history, buying Hey Dude for $2.5 billion. On paper, it seemed like an odd pairing. One brand was known for bold, chunky clogs, the other for laid-back, lightweight slip-ons, but in reality, it was a masterstroke. The truth revealed here is that diversification isn't just about chasing trends, it's about building resilience. Hey Dude gave Crocs access to a new demographic, younger, fashion-forward customers who wanted comfort without the polarizing look of the classic clog. It was the footwear equivalent of adding a second hit single to your album. You expand your fan base without alienating the original crowd. What no one tells you is that acquisitions like this aren't just about products, they're about ecosystems. Hey Dude had its own loyal following, strong e-commerce game, and a design language that felt fresh. Crocs could plug in their manufacturing expertise, global distribution, and marketing muscle, instantly scaling the brand far beyond its previous reach. Financially, it almost didn't work. $2.5 billion is a massive bet, especially coming off a turnaround. But Crocs had momentum and cash flow on their side. They weren't buying a fixer-upper, they were buying a rocket that just needed more fuel. And if you've ever built something from scratch, you know how rare it is to find a ready-to-scale product that fits perfectly with your vision. The acquisition also gave Crocs insulation against fashion's unpredictability. If clog sales slowed, hey, dude could carry the weight, and vice versa. It's the same principle big tech uses. Apple has iPhones and MacBooks. Google has search and YouTube. Multiple pillars mean your empire stands taller and longer. But perhaps the most interesting part, this wasn't the end game. The Crocs story, from a strange phone clog on a Caribbean boat to a billion-dollar global powerhouse, holds lessons that go far beyond footwear. And those lessons might just change the way you see business, risk, and even your own next big move. So, what's stopping you from taking that crazy idea you've been hiding and turning it into something the world can't ignore? You won't. Believe this. But every billion-dollar brand you admire started with the same uncertainty you're feeling right now. The difference? They acted. No one saw it coming when Crocs went from a phone shoe joke to a global empire. The truth revealed. Here is simple. The world rewards those who dare to look ridiculous before they look brilliant. Learn from this mistake most people make, waiting for approval before taking the first step. What really happened in the Crocs story is proof that you don't need to be perfect to start. You just need to start, and that hidden lesson, it's worth more than gold. So tell me, if you could launch your ugly idea today, what would it be? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more stories, strategies, and shocking truths behind the world's most unexpected successes, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let's keep building your next big win together.